Hello and welcome to The Real Bottom Line, the podcast for entrepreneurs featuring entrepreneurs. Today, my guest is Justin Goodbread, and he is the owner of Relentless Value Coaching, and he helps businesses grow. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you doing today?
I am fabulous. Where in the world are you today, Justin?
I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee.
There you go. Awesome stuff. And we always start off the podcast a little bit with your story. How did you become an entrepreneur? Were you always an entrepreneur? Did you have a lemonade stand? Like, tell me your story.
I've always been an entrepreneur. Yes.
Okay.
I started my first business when I was 15 years old. I was trained to be an entrepreneur by my mom and dad
Yep.
from the time I was about 5 years old. Started my first business when I was 15, sold it when I was 21, started my second one at 22, sold it when I was 23. 24, started another one, sold it when I was 26, started another one when I was 36, sold three of them. And so now started and sold seven companies and now living a dream, coaching business owners, teaching them how to radically scale businesses for value so they can have a 7, 8, or 9 figure exit.
Sweet. I love it, Justin. I think that having that focus, where I want to go first is obviously you've never looked at you as your business as a baby. Like it's always been, and it feels like you've always like, here's an asset. What has been the trigger for you to have those exits? Was it the same every time or was it different every time?
That's an interesting question, Wendy. Every event in life, every exit I've had came from a direct event. So, for example, the very first business I had, it was a landscape company. It's still in existence today. It grew rapidly. It was fun to grow. But then I met my wife, who's from Knoxville, Tennessee, and we didn't want to live in South Georgia where the business was. So we sold the company, moved to Tennessee. That's the reason we had the exit. And then each one of these exits had a story. My last one being, my wife was very sick during COVID. We had scaled our financial advisory practice from startup to an 8-figure exit in 49 months.
Wow.
It's very hard to do in that industry. It's a very highly regulated industry. And I was having fun. I was making mid-six figures, taking 4 or 5 months off a year, watching the company grow without me. And my wife got sick, and my coach asked me, he said, "Hey, Goodbread, what would you do if you had unlimited time or resources that you're not doing today? What would you do tomorrow?" And I started thinking about it. I'm like, it wouldn't be running this financial planning practice because I don't want to do that. I don't like financial advisory work. I'll have to say, if I had to be a financial advisor, I'd move to Idaho, stick a fork in my eye, and sell llamas. It's not who I am. So he would laugh and he'd say, "Okay, what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be on stage.
Mm.
I want to be on stage in front of audiences, telling them the story, telling them that as a business owner, you can live a dream, you can live this life of freedom. You don't have to be enslaved by your business. Here's how you do it." I want to coach well-seasoned, very tactical, relentless business owners on how they can grow value. That's what I would do. He said, "Let's do it." So every business exit had a reason for it. Those are just two of the seven.
That's interesting. What drew you into the financial planning in the first place? You just saw opportunity?
Somebody dared me that I couldn't pass the Series 7, the 66, and the Life Accident Health in 30 days, and they actually put $10,000 on the line. So I picked up these manuals, passed all three exams in 30 days, got my 10 grand, and before you knew it, was in the financial world.
Do you know, and whether you practice or not, like what I have found really exciting about having my CFP and being in that world and also helping companies understand exit is now you have full picture, right? Like I think that when you only have one of those silos, you're missing part of the equation. So you would understand you should be doing X, Y, Z. You just don't do it. You can help them figure out what's next. Because I think there's three things that have to be ready. Like your business has to be ready to sell, which is what you're talking about with the rapid scaling. But you have to be mentally ready and you need to be financially ready.
You have to be all three. We call it owner readiness and business attractiveness. I'm a professor at the Exit Planning Institute, which we teach financial advisors, CPAs, attorneys, value advisors on how to actually work with business owners. And the business has to be attractive. Most businesses will not sell. And if they do sell, they're not going to sell for the value that the business owner expects. In fact, my podcast is called Decamillionaire Decoded.
Yeah.
Why Decamillionaire? Because most business owners who are successful make $250,000 a year in income, take home pay.
Yeah.
On top of that, they're probably running another $100 to $150, $200,000 through the business
Mm-hmm.
in terms of perks or benefits, right? So it's not uncommon for that business owner who's only taking on $250,000 to really need a lifestyle of $400,000 to $500,000 in income.
Yeah.
Because once the business is gone, all the tax benefits and the perks are gone, you got to have a lot of money. So they don't think about it in the sense of, oh my goodness, I've got to have 10 million plus in order for me to maintain my lifestyle.
Yes.
That we business owners think that we're gonna live in this fantasy world of producing high income, and then all of a sudden somebody's going to walk in on a white horse and buy our business for millions of dollars and expect us to pay us. It doesn't work that way, friends. You've got to build a business that is attractive to a buyer, and as you just said, Wendy, you got to be ready. Ready is mentally ready. You got to be mentally ready that your identity cannot be your
Yeah.
business. You got to be mentally ready that your business, it can go without you having to be there, and that
Yep.
you can actually walk away from it. You got to be ready to say, what is your purpose in life? Because it's not your business.
No.
What are you going to do? I've sold my business. I'm 46-year old. If my business was my purpose and I'm destitute, I might as well just, go fishing for the rest of my life. That's not my purpose. So it's a lot of different things that come together, and there's just not a lot of context or conversation from people who've actually been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the battle scars on here's how you actually exit, you scale a business, you exit, and you live a life of freedom.
I think there's a really interesting question in one of the assessment tools I use. Do you identify as I am a business owner or I own a business? And it's that subtle difference that will make the difference between how successful you will be after you sell your business.
My book, my second book is called Your Baby's Ugly. And I wrote it because your baby's ugly. My dad used to say, your baby's ugly, son. He says, son, you never tell a woman their baby's ugly, but if you do, you better run or duck because they're going to come after you, or
Yeah, yeah.
they're going to throw something after you. And in that mindset is that we often say we are the business owner,
Mm.
or we own a business. So what happened in my own world, Wendy, is I had this goal to reach certain statuses in my life that Zig Ziglar at the age of 20 had at a small conference that said, write these things down and commit to them. And I did. And here I am, 36 years of age, and I'd not accomplished any of those things I wanted to do. One was to write a New York Times bestseller, and one was to be a decamillionaire. And here I am at 36 years old, had not even written a book, and was nowhere near that classification. So my coach, he said, the problem that you're having now is you're a certified financial planner. In your previous three companies, you were a business owner who owned a financial planning firm. I'm sorry, you were a business owner on a landscape company. You were a business owner on an insurance company. You were a business owner who owned a consulting firm. But now you're a financial planner. You're a certified financial planner. You identify as the technician, not as the equity owner.
Yep.
And with that subtle shift, my coach then began pouring into me for about 36 months. And friends, within 4 years, I did get the New York Times bestseller, but I got number one Wall Street Journal bestseller and one international bestseller, millions of books sold.
Yeah.
Got two books written in a 4 year time period, and I blew past Decamillionaire status within 4 years. Why? Simple mindset shift from I am a certified financial planner who works with business owners to I am a business owner,
Yeah.
period. I'm a business owner who happens to serve other business owners.
I love that distinction, and I also love that you're not afraid to tell them their baby's ugly. And I think also that shift in the mindset, but also having those clear, definable goals. Because I find that business owners sometimes um, they get into that day to day, and the big vision sometimes gets lost in the day to day. And having that thing they're striving for, or understand, I want to be a deca millionaire, or I want to be this. You have to have that clear picture, and you had it.
I was challenged by Zig Ziglar at the age of 19. He actually, Wendy, you'll like this. He said, here I'm 19 years of age, and I'm in a conference, about 200 of us, and we're sitting in the audience, and Zig's up there doing his thing. Anybody's ever seen Zig Ziglar, you know the man, you know the myth, you know the legend. He's up with the water pump, priming the pump, and he's talking his cliches, and he finally stops, and he goes, I want everybody in the audience to take a sheet of paper out. To pull a sheet of paper out. He said, I want you to write 1 through 3 down and put your wildest dreams down. Your wildest dreams. Your wild. You could hear him say it. He said it 3 times. Your wildest dreams. He said, I want to be so scary that you don't think it's ever going to happen. So I did. I wrote down
Mhm.
number one, I want a smoking hot wife. Literally my number one goal, Wendy, because I had not met my wife at that point. It was like number one, 19-year-old guy, right? So red blooded American, smoking hot wife. Number two, New York Times bestseller. The person beside me said, a what? I said New York Times bestseller. And I thought I put down $10 million net worth. I really thought I put down 1 million. Then I said 10 million. I was like, well, that's just one extra zero. Who cares? It's never going to
Oh,
happen
just a
anyways.
girl. Yeah.
And then my buddy's like, you put one too many zeros down. Started laughing at me. I was like, no, if someone can make 1 million, why can't I do 10? So it was interesting. It's all about perspective. What happens though for us in business, this is the reality, is we start off with this vision. We start off with that passion that you can hear in both of our voices right now, that
Yeah.
passion that we have. And then life happens.
Mhm.
And we get drilled down, we get cooked in, we get like a pressure cooker. We get weighted with clients, our team, regulations, finally trying to get lead gen, trying to generate sales, operational efficiencies. And before you know it, we lost the very thing
Yeah.
that actually led us into business, which is that passion,
Yeah.
which is that vision, that thing that we wanted to achieve. And so many business owners get stuck there. They use grit to get off the ground, but then they lack clarity, which kicks them into this proverbial ceiling.
Yeah.
And so the idea, friends, if you want to scale to whatever your number is, or whatever your freedom score is, or if whatever the lifestyle is, grit's going to get you off the ground in business. We all have it. We wouldn't have made it in business. But it's that clarity of what is it that you truly want? What is it you truly desire? And it can't be a number. It can't be, I want 1,000 clients. It can't be that. It's got to be something that lives past that business of yours. Mine is eternal impact. One of my biggest things, Wendy, for me is I don't want to be at my deathbed and my kids be around me and they said, Dad did not leave it on the field, as a coach would
Yeah.
say. He did not do everything. I want them to look at me and said, my dad did everything he knew how to do to the best of his abilities. There was nothing left. That's what I want.
That's really interesting. And I love the word impact because I do think that's so interesting. For certain set of business owners, sometimes I think they get caught up in the passion and then they make themselves smaller because the money mindset piece around how much is too much and all this stuff. And then I'm like, listen, the more money you make, the more profit you make, the greater you can expand your impact. That like that that drop of water with the thing. And so do you ever run into that, the mindset around thinking too small, or are all your people you work with that they're big?
I think each and every one of us think too small.
Mm,
And we think within our limited lens. We can't read the label when we're inside the jar, as the old saying
yeah,
goes. And even in my own life, we had reached this data point. My wife was sick. We sold our company. We look at the bank account. It's nice. It's pretty amazing. And honestly, I'm sitting there and I want to retire thinking about this proverbial retirement. I mean, after all, I was a financial planner, helped manage millions of dollars for people to reach retirement. So why not retire at the age of 45, right? This fire mindset, financial independence, retire early. I had this whole thing down. And my wife said, get out of the house, Justin, you're driving me crazy. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm driving myself crazy too. So what are we going to do? So Wendy, I started thinking, I'm like, well, we don't need any more money. And this is not braggadocious, friends. This is
no,
just
but it
answering the
changes your
question.
mindset. When you have sufficiency, all of a sudden everything opens up.
It changed for me where it changed. So mine and my wife's heart has always been, we want to help. We work with a lot of orphanages and
Mm,
children's home and Christian schools around the world in poor areas of the country. In fact, we're headed to the Caribbean to a children's home that we support here next week. So we wanted to do that. And I literally was sitting at home and I went, you know what? I don't have many gifts. I'm just an old country boy born and raised on a dirt road in South Georgia. That's literally all I am, guys. I just happen to listen to really smart people. But if I know how to make money and that is fun for me, and being able to use my skill set and the result of my skill set and my passion as a revenue stream, why can't I make as much money as possible and give it to those people who need it? Give it to the charities, the missions, give it outside of me. Why do I really need to take and sit on the beach the rest of my life? And so literally it became a reflection for me, Wendy, of I know that God's gifted me in a very unique way, and I can serve others through this mission I have of impacting. And the byproduct of my mission of impacting others is going to be revenue or resources. And those resources can be used multiplicatively throughout the entire ethos, the entire global world to drive others to something that they could not have achieved on their own. Why would I not want to do that?
but well, you're creating a triple win. Your clients win, you win, and all the people you serve in your philanthropy win. So that's
Exactly.
increased impact right there.
Yeah. I never thought about it that way. That's very well said. I've never considered that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Use it as you see fit. Okay, so where do you see? So I heard an interesting statistic. I went to a business succession transition conference this week, and they talked about how when an individual business owner starts to get closer to 60, the business is profitable, they may take their foot off the gas, and how that would actually may affect their value. and they may get a smaller check. How would you deal with an individual like that, and kind of like, hey, let's make this sprint to the finish line?
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily around a certain age, depending on demographics. It may be at the age of 60. But what happens is this short timer syndrome is what it's actually called that kicks into place. You
What
realize
is
that there's a value there for a business that could come into play, that you know that a buyer is willing to buy it from you. And so now you start to coast.
that?
And what happens in the J curve, let's just use simple graphics being we may be audible for some people. If you've seen the business data point, you've seen a J curve. And on the J curve, it starts to rapidly accelerate. And oftentimes we see that in our 40s. After about 10, 15 years in business, maybe five, depending on the type of business you're in. The best time, the absolute best time to exit your company is in the J curve,
Yeah.
is as it's rapidly accelerating. You don't want it to go into atrophy and you don't want to go into maturity. The minute you go into atrophy or maturity, what's going to happen is you may still have the appraised value. You may get the appraised value, but you're not going to get the same favorable terms on the deal. Okay. And I've literally gone through hundreds of transactions, not just myself, but with clients, and even bought many dozens of businesses. Those owners who take their foot off the gas, holy cow, I get a great deal as a buyer. But when you're running through, your foot's on the gas and you're accelerating, and someone looks at you and like, dude, you got the world by the tail. Why in the world are you exiting your business? Those businesses get the highest multiple, they get the highest value, they get the best terms. There's typically less of an earnout, there's typically less of a clawback, there's typically less of retention
Yeah.
credits. They don't require as much cash reserves. Why? Because the data points of the financial statements for the lenders or for the investors look so much more favorable than somebody who has gone into an annuitization style model or gotten kind of sideways. It just doesn't provide an investor the same opportunity. So you're not dealing with the highest quality investor, which means you're going to be giving up dollars and pennies or ultimate concessions.
What I also find interesting is the statistics around how 50% of business transitions are involuntary, with death, divorce, disability, things of that nature. So, my hypothesis is do the work and get your business as valuable as possible, because you just don't know.
I think that's interesting. Here's what I think is more interesting around the statistics, right? So
Yep,
you just mentioned the 50% statistic. Another one that you might hear out there is somewhere between the 14 to 20% statistic that says only 14 to 20% of businesses in the small business market actually exit.
yep,
Another interesting statistic is that those who do exit, only 4% are fulfilled or happy with the value afterwards. So you literally, friends, we have about 350,000 middle market companies in the United States right now. Middle market being 5 million of EBITDA to 100 million of EBITDA. So there's about 350 million, 350,000 companies like that. If you break the statistic down, that means less than 14,000 of those companies will actually sell and be fulfilled. That is ridiculous. Here is why. We are control freaks. We control everything in our business except for our exit. And it blows my mind. We as business owners, we want to control everything. We want to control the sales. We want to control the marketing. We want to control the operations. We want to control everything to our own detriment, except for the very thing which is going to put the cha-ching in our pocket. We say things like, well, we're going to work forever. Or we say things like, our kids are going to come and take the business. They don't want your stupid business. They've listened to you fuss about it at the Thanksgiving table for decades. They don't want your business. So we say these things and we like, well, we're going to live forever, like we're immortal or something. Friends, you're going to die one day. Your business is going away. So why in the world, it's amazing to me is the statistics, yes, but why is it that we, the most ultra controlling person there is in the world, will control everything except for how we exit our company? That is what's mind blowing to me.
and that's where I think that third piece, that third readiness, is mentally, because the statistics do say so many business owners are unhappy. But I don't think it's always the money. I think sometimes it's the, what do I do now? Like, after the 3-month vacation and you're finally not burnt out anymore, then what? I think that's where it hits in, right?
It does. And so the way we teach our business owners how to do this is create a mini me.
Mm,
It's the old Austin Powers mini me. It's kind of a slapstick comedy, but nonetheless, it does provide a humoristic type of an approach. In our companies, we want to get to the point to where we are the investor, not the operator.
yeah,
We are the investor, not the business owner. So how do you do that? You start off by first, and this is where every business owner mouth hits the ground whenever we say this, take a month off.
yeah.
And it's easy to say.
And don't check
It's
your
hard to
email
do.
and do not take a phone call, and let's see how you do.
And what happens is a business owner who just said the mouth just hit the ground, you need a value advisor. You need someone to come in and teach you how to do that.
Yeah,
And then once you take a month off and we do that for a year or two, now we're going to take 3 months off and we're not going to check the emails. And what's going to happen is when you step out of that office
your stress
or you step out of that business, the sand is going to flow in. It's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. But more importantly, you're going to rediscover your purpose and your passion. You're going to rediscover that your identity is not that business. And friends, if you do that for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years before you ever choose to exit, not have to exit.
yeah,
If you do that 3 or 4 or 5 years before you choose to exit, then what's going to happen is the exit is just going to be part of your life.
yeah.
It's just going to be a
It's
transactional event, and
time.
your life's going to continue. And now, like my coach told me, hey, Goodbread, you've got time he said, you got time and money and knowledge. What can you do now? Like, well, I never thought about that. I'm in my mid 40s. I've been a business owner for 30 years. I've got money and I've got talent. What do I do? The world is your oyster at that point.
Yeah.
And now it becomes where you can literally do the very thing that you believe God's created you to do without any pretense or without any judgment. It is so liberating. The very thing that you went into business for can be achieved, but it's not going to be achieved unless you start looking at that business as an asset that you're trying to build the quality of it for someone else to pay you for.
And to your point too, like even on that J curve and everything else, you want it so that someone comes in and you're finishing the marathon, someone's just starting. So how you want to leave them some room to be able to go and take it their way.
Yeah, you see that typically when the investor comes in. If I'm buying a business, I'm going to see if there's any pent up operational efficiencies that we can use, or if there's other markets that because it's so good
Yep,
that I could take this machine and bolt it onto another company and penetrate a market, which gives me lift and scale. So you're exactly right in that.
that is so cool. What do you see as the biggest mistake business owners are making right now when it comes to exit planning?
They don't do it. I mean, period. Statistically speaking, we just don't do it.
Yeah. What
But
do you
if
think
you
is the
got,
barrier? What is the biggest barrier to the planning? Is it kind of like if I buy life insurance, I'm going to die? Like, what is it?
that's an interesting question. I'm pausing because that's a very serious question, demands a very thought out answer. I think the barrier is we honestly don't know what we want. It's not the academics.
Yeah,
It never is. There's so much knowledge, information out there. We honestly don't know what we want.
yeah,
We either caught up in a beast of a machine, a Frankenstein business that we don't like, or we have a very successful business that is just why would we rock the boat? And the reason why we don't think about this next chapter is because we've never slowed down enough to consider what is life like? Or what could I really achieve? Or maybe we've gotten lazy in our thinking. Ultimately, I boil down to we just honestly don't know what we want.
fascinating. I have to agree with you on that. I think giving yourself the space to come up with that vision that is beyond work, right? I don't even call it retirement. I call it life after work because you're still living. You're not put out to pasture. So,
Yeah, I think that's the answer there. That's a very interesting question. I've never had it phrased exactly the way it hit my ears on that, but I think it honestly is we don't like clarity.
yeah.
We use grit when we launch our business, and then we get stuck because we don't have clarity on what we want to achieve, or we constantly chasing the horizon like it's going to win something for us. The horizon's constantly moving, and we're mountaintop to mountaintop jumping, and we never slow down to enjoy. And friends, I just don't know about you, but I didn't want a life like that. I didn't want a life whenever I looked at when I saw a meme yesterday come across my social media channel that had a picture of a casket, a picture of a casket. There were 4 different pictures of a casket. It said a gazillionaire, like a trillionaire, somebody who was a business owner, somebody who was a pauper, somebody, and they were all the same caskets. I just don't want the
Mhm.
dash between my birth date and my death date to be, well, this was a successful business owner, or lose my family,
Yeah.
lose my friends, lose my faith, lose my fitness. I didn't want to lose those things for the sake of business. Money is so cheap and easy to make. Money is so simple. It's so easy to make. But whenever you're trying to create a life and you're trying to create something around a business that you're impacting others, it actually pulls back to what is it you truly want? What is it that I really want on my epitaph? What is it I want on my tombstone? Do I want, here lies my dad, a good business guy? Or I want to, hey, here lies my husband and my dad, somebody who truly loved us and sacrificed and created memories.
Yeah.
I think it's what do we truly want?
I love that way you've talked about it, and I feel like thinking about it, like at some level, our businesses are tools. They're tools for us to have lead a certain kind of life, the life we want, to have the impact we want. And I think we sometimes get caught up in the day-to-day operations and forget that it is a tool, just like money is a tool, right?
Right.
So we entwine all this emotion around it. And the word I hate the worst, shoulds, a lot of shoulds around how I should run my business and should be like this. And I should be there before any other employee gets there and after leaving after everyone else left. That whole hustle and grind mentality, I think, can sometimes take people down.
Yeah, I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I've been very outspoken about that. I think that mentality that we see in today's world is just ridiculous. I also been very outspoken the fact that entrepreneurship and business ownership is glamorized, and
Mm,
we business owners know that it's not. It's a stinking hard journey, and it's a journey that we've chosen that we honestly believe we're made for, and we wouldn't be in it if we weren't. It's probably the fact that we couldn't work for anybody else. That's the reality of the
I'm
situation. But
unemployable is what I tell people.
I mean, come on, that's the reality. We're kind of hard to work with ourselves. But anyways, the reality is business is a wealth creation tool. It's one of the greatest wealth creation tools there is. I believe it's a greater wealth creation tool than even real estate. If you look statistically at the number of millionaires who are created, is more created by business than through real estate alone, or even the stock market.
Mm,
But it's not just creating wealth for yourself, the business owner. What you're doing is you're feeding a lot of mouths. You're putting a lot of kids through school. You're paying a lot of mortgages and car payments. You're helping communities stay viable. You're supporting charities. You're supporting everything. So business wealth creation is not just self-serving. It is a impacts a system that you can use as your own ministry, if you will,
yeah.
within your local ecosystem. So to me, if that's the way I view business, and that's the way I view business, the way I teach our clients to view business, then why would we not want it to be as healthy as possible,
Yes.
as sufficient as possible, as profitable as possible, still doing the best service within the ethos and values we have. I want it to do that, but I also want it to impact everybody around me. And if it's not, if it doesn't have that impact and it's self-serving, then it is, man, it's such a very petty, very simplistic lifestyle. And I just don't want that. And most business owners don't.
That's true. Okay. What haven't I asked you, Justin, that I should have?
I don't know. Um, Lord, I've got hundreds of hours of content out there.
So, where can people hook up with you? Is it best to go to your LinkedIn page? Is it best to go to a website? Where would you send them?
Yeah, so a lot of professionals connect with me on LinkedIn. It's easy. I'm the only Justin Goodbread in the world. Some people go to Instagram. I share my personal life on Instagram. We share a lot of stories there, and we have our own YouTube blog posts, our own podcast, 600 some odd episodes on it. You can check out the website, Justin Goodbread. If you Google Justin Goodbread, you'll find me everywhere. What I would challenge you to do is I have a coaching program called Relentless Value Coaching. You can tell by my personality, I'm very passionate about what I do. I want to see business owners succeed. There are a lot of great bodies of knowledge out there. I just happen to be part of the mix that is adding to the community. So if you're interested and serious about scaling a business, I have so many resources out there that are free for you to grab and work with your value advisors and your coaches. There's a lot of people who are there to serve you. My challenge to you is this. I have this firm belief. Every business owner should have a
A
coach.
hundred
I firmly
percent.
believe that.
100.
Firmly believe that. And I'll bring it back to this, friends, and I know we'll get off of here at this point, but I remember watching Michael Phelps in the Olympics. Whenever he won he became the most decorated Olympian of all time. They were talking about his coaches, diet coach, and all these other coaches that were doing, putting the little massaging and all those other things. One coach caught my eye. And what this coach did was, as Michael finished up a relay, he's a two-part relay. His first relay, he looked over his coach, and his coach simply held his arm up in the air and put it at a 9-degree angle over his head. And Michael shook his head up and down. That's all the coach did. He didn't say a word. He just gave a signal in the middle of an Olympic event. At the end of the event, the reporter saw what happened. He said, "What was your coach telling you?" He said, "My coach told me my arm was not in the right placement, and I lost. I was going to lose." He goes, "I knew the statistics. I was going to lose 2/10 of a second." He won a world record by 2/10 of a second. His coach saw that his arm was not in the right place. This is the most decorated athlete of all times. His coach could see something he couldn't see, and it caused him to win the gold. So if you're a business owner, I'm going to make this announcement loud and clear. find yourself a coach. You cannot read the label when you're inside the jar. Find you somebody who's been there, done that, who has the skill set to guide you. Pay them whatever amount of money they're worth. I actually read a study from Rutgers the other day. It said coaches yield a 788% return on their investment, typically in the first 2 years.
Mm.
It's a new data point. So if you're a business owner, get you a coach, find you somebody who holds you accountable, listen to them, and the advice they give you that you dislike, that's the one you should do.
Yes, whatever you're resisting the most, right? Oh my gosh, Justin, thank you so much for your time today. This was wonderful. And the real bottom line is, I think Justin said it perfectly. Make sure you have a coach to help you through all the phases. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Wendy.